The Canadian recession has already begun, so says Canada's National Post, with economists now expecting Canada's output to fall in the next 2 quarters, the definition of a recession, as exports tumble in the trade war with Trump. I guess the silver lining is a recession may not feel much worse than the Trudeau decade. The trade war, of course, marches on because the Canadian government will not drop barriers against American goods, including poultry and egg tariffs up to 200%, dairy tariffs up to 300%, discriminatory taxes against U.S. companies, and a near lockout of Americans in the financial sector that makes up a fifth of Canada's economy. Of course, the Canadian government does this because bankers, farmers, and the infamous Quebec milk lobby have a lot more political power than Canada's essential and competitive automobile, steel, and energy exports. Now, considering the U.S. makes up 3/4 of Canada's exports, which in turn account for 1/3 of the entire Canadian economy, this is going to leave a mark. The problem for regular Canadians is a decade of Justin Trudeau has already gutted the Canadian economy. So wages are flat since 2016, household debt is the highest in the G7, economic growth since 2019 is the lowest out of 50 developed countries. According to Stats Canada, 40% of middle-class Canadians are living hand-to-mouth. Angus says half of Canadians are considering leaving the country. So how did it get so bad? In his 10 years, Justin Trudeau doubled the size of the federal government, sending the national debt up by 1/3 and driving inflation that is still stuck over 3%. That's twice U.S. inflation. More government, of course, means more red tape that strangles the economy, including environmental assessments to cripple Alberta Energy, gig worker restrictions so you cannot drive for Uber, and a new global warming carbon tax that, according to taxpayer.com, raised winter heating costs in Canada by 1/3, which also strangles consumers. So this all drove unemployment to nearly 7% before Trump's tariffs, compared to just 4.2% in the U.S. According to Stats Canada, youth unemployment, so that's age 15 to 24, is actually double that at 14.2%. In the U.S., it's single digits. So incomes and jobs declined, yet mass migration drove Canadian housing to nosebleed levels. An entry-level home in Vancouver costs $800,000, while you need $170,000 of income to qualify for a starter home in Toronto's suburbs. Put it together, and Canada now has West Virginia wages, San Francisco home prices, and a looming trade war risking 1/3 of the entire economy. So what's next? Brought to you by Unchained.com. Freshly installed Prime Minister Carney is in denial, fantasizing about replacing U.S. exports with Uruguay and Malaysia, not a joke, along with goofy schemes like government-funded prefab homes or making Canada a, quote, clean energy superpower by piling more taxes on manufacturing. Zooming out, the Canadian government and government-allied unions have at this point metastasized like a cancer. Over 20% of Canadian voters literally work for the government. Another 25% are the government-sanctioned unions that increasingly run the country. When almost half of Canadians draw a paycheck from growing government, you are in a doom loop towards a Soviet-style government take over the economy. It may not stop until they screw up bad enough that even government-paid voters break through. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.